Welcome to the Rapport Advantage Podcast, transforming the way leaders communicate. Here's your host, Alex Swire-Clark.
Welcome to the show. Welcome to the show today, people. We've got an exciting guest with us. Not going to tell you who it is there. Suspense. Welcome to the Rapport Advantage Podcast. If you haven't listened to our podcast before, we are here to help you break down the walls of miscommunication, increase your emotional intelligence, and build better relationships in the workplace and beyond. I am Alex Swire-Clark, CEO, speaker, and certified human behavior expert, and I am absolutely ecstatic to be joined by none other than Pat Helmers. He's an international business consultant for technology startups, and he is the voice behind the Sales Babble Podcast. How are you today, Pat?
I'm doing great, Alex. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Pat, in terms of the Sales Babble Podcast, can you give me a little bit of origins about that and why you got started with it?
You know, I've been a fan. You may not know this. Of course, you don't know this, but I'm a fan of radio. Have been for years and years and years. And for years, I've been in sales for a long time. Lots of times, as a sales manager and an outside sales guy, you're in the car driving, and one of the best ways to be constantly learning is to listen to cassette tapes, and CDs and things like that. And when podcasts were invented, oh my goodness, did I become addicted to podcasts? And I never found a sales podcast that I really loved, so I thought, heck, I'm going to do it myself, and that's where Sales Babble came from.
Now, you said cassette tapes. Now, we do have younger people in the audience, so they may not know what a cassette tape is, but it's a little brown thing that winds in your car. It's got two little things you can start and stop it with a pencil if you stick it in there. Anyway, that's
actually, I met a guy yesterday that said that cassette sales are skyrocketing right now. People are going, cool, just like LPs. Yes, sir.
Old school. I've got plenty here, so maybe I'll sell something on eBay or find some way to earn some extra money.
There's a millennial out there who wants to buy it.
Well, we'll see if we can find them. You've got a long history in the sales business, and you've got a program called Selling with Confidence, and I know that our listenership is going to want to be interested in hearing about that. So give us a little bit of the 30-second pitch on what Selling with Confidence is.
Well, Selling with Confidence is all about finding within yourself the things that you know really will make sense to be able to connect with people and allow you to be persuasive and allow you to make pitches and actually try to help people by providing them value. And what this class does is it kind of walks you through all those steps from generating leads to reaching out to people with them using social media or making a cold call, actually get an appointment, for a meeting, which is the hardest part, presenting, and then trying to get these people to be so excited and see the value that they close themselves, and then put a bunch of order around that. That's what we do in the Selling with Confidence course. It's all self-paced, and people can take it at their own leisure.
That is super, and we love the flexibility of having those online classes, and folks can do it at midnight or 6 o'clock in the morning. It doesn't matter. In terms of cold calling, you said that's one of the hardest parts, and that's a very scary part, especially for folks new in sales. So can you give us a little bit of a dive into maybe some of your techniques or maybe the most useful tips that you teach when cold calling?
Absolutely. The biggest issue that people have in sales, and this isn't just new people, experienced salespeople fall into this behavior too, is that people kind of forget the whole point of what's going on in sales, that it's all about an exchange of value, that these people they've got some kind of, your prospective customers have some kind of problem, or they've got some kind of deep desire that they're trying to reach. If you have something that could provide value and make those things attainable, make those bad things go away and the good things actually come to fruition, then people are more than happy to buy from you. Way too often, sellers don't think that way at all. What they're thinking about is like, I got this awesome stuff. People obviously love it. It's just obvious. And I'm just going to start pitching it. That makes no sense, Alex.
And so, Pat, I guess my next question is, how do you set up or explain to folks to get them to really understand the value of the product or service that you're selling, because obviously, their value coming back is going to be some kind of monetary compensation to the company for which you're representing. So how do you establish that value to someone?
Great question. It goes like this. If people were to have a mindset, they were to reach inside of themselves, they would realize that sales is not something like separate from life, that sales is life. Consider this. Let's say somebody that you deeply love calls you up in the middle of the day, and you're busy working away, and you pick up the phone, and you notice, oh my goodness, they're calling me. That's not very often. Then you answer the phone, you go, hey, what's going on? And they say to you, I was just in a car accident. What would you say, Alex?
Oh my God, what happened?
Right.
Are you okay?
Right. Is anybody hurt?
Right.
You want me to do anything? Want me to make a phone call? You'd ask a bunch of questions, wouldn't you?
Exactly.
You wouldn't do this. You wouldn't say, honey, this is what you need to do. I want you to take photographs of everything in that accident. I want you to make sure you get the insurance cards of everybody that was involved. I want you to get the badge number of the officer that's here. You wouldn't go lecturing them. You'd ask a bunch of questions, right?
Well, my spouse would if it was my daughter, but just saying, because she just got her license. That's the third car you've wrecked this month, honey. Anyway, sidetrack. But yes, I would ask lots of questions, Pat.
The natural thing is to ask a bunch of questions, because you don't know exactly what you can do for them unless you can try to figure out what's going on in their head. And we do this all the time. We know how to do this at the appropriate time. In sales, it's always the appropriate time. The first thing you need to do is to understand what is the pains or the desires, the fears they have, or the hopes they're trying to attain, to know what that is. In some set industry, you may have a sense of what that is, but whenever you meet somebody, you got to start digging into that. So if you open up a cold call that says something along the lines like, it's my understanding you guys got this XYZ machine, and I know a lot of people are struggling with that. Are you? It's my understanding that a lot of people in your industry are having this kind of problem, and you're hoping to move to this new technology. Have you guys ever talked about that? And if a conversation is kind of more like that, it allows, and the trick is to, once you ask it, is to really let them speak, let them talk and listen, and kind of keep digging in. Like, okay, they are thinking about that. They are thinking about they want that. But are they really thinking about doing it now or later? What other problems do they have? Where on the rank of all the crap that they're working on? Is it third or fourth on the list? Or is it first? Because people will buy stuff that's at the first. So it demands, too, that you're selling something that's got a value, something that rocks. If you're selling something that's mediocre, that's tough. But if you can provide something that really can make a difference in their lives, it's very easy for them to get excited about it. In fact, they will close themselves.
So I want to go back to a point that you made, which was, I think, very profound, in that the product or service that someone may be selling to them is not isolated. It's among a pantheon of other decisions, other projects, other things that are going on. So how do you go about probing to determine where this is on the priority chain? How can it maybe coexist with something else? Can it be partnered with something else? Are those good questions to ask, Pat? Or what techniques would you use to kind of dive into that a little further?
Well, the thing is, great salespeople are also empathetic. So they're naturally going to ask about their business. So what I like to do is ask what I call the SORT questions. Questions like, well, why don't you tell me your story? How'd you get this job? How'd you start this company maybe? Where are you at right now? What's your happily ever after? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? And then you would maybe then ask them, so what are the obstacles of getting to that happily ever after? And they'll tell you, I got money issues, I got quality issues, I got staffing issues, right? I got my profit margins are beating again, my revenues are dropping. It's always something along those lines, right? Time and whatnot. And you just write all this down. And then you ask them, so what are the ramifications of these problems? That's the R of the SORT method. And then you can kind of see that because they've got timing issues, they're losing customers, and because it's super frustrating, they have a high turnover in staff. And you just kind of start digging into this, and you just out and out ask them, God, what is the most important thing here that you're looking at? And they'll tell you. Then you can ask a transformation question that if I was to make one of these problems go away, one of these obstacles would disappear, how would that transform your business? And if you can get them to say things like that, well, that would be amazing. That would fix all my problems. That would fix all my money problems. That would fix all my customer retention problems. That would be really great. But what happens with a lot of salespeople is they do this, is that they can talk a prospect into getting a demo, looking at it. And the prospects are going to be nicer to go, well, Pat, that looks pretty nice. Yeah, that's really great. Why don't you leave me some brochures and then let me think about it. And then they go away. Salesperson goes away. And they wonder why they can never get them on the phone again. Because they never dug in to realize that is not on their highest priority. But it might be next year. Like we're doing an edition this year. This is the highest on my list. Great. When's that edition getting done? In the fall? Why don't I follow up with you in October?
Timing is so critical and so key. So all of those questions go into that qualification process because, like you said, timing is important. Priorities are important. So what do you do in terms of when a prospect says, well, now's not the right time? What is a good follow-up process that's out there for folks to follow, and what do you think best practices are in terms of that?
Well, you just ask it, would it be a good time for me to get back to you? And they say, in 3 months. And you go, great, I'll do that. And you honor that. And then in 3 months, you call them back. Maybe you can even do it in 2 months. Who knows? But the trick is to keep at it. The average person only follows up twice. But on the whole, people have to follow up 8 to 10 times. I just had a guy on the podcast who said he had to follow up for 2 years with a guy, and he was following up every 3 months. And you never ever heard anything from the guy, but he never heard a no. And finally, that guy came to him and said, I really appreciate that you've been really sticking with me because I'm really busy. And you've been keeping this top of mind. I'm ready to buy now.
And I think that's so important for folks to understand is that silence doesn't mean no. It doesn't mean a yes, but it doesn't mean a no. So just keep...
you can invent all kinds of stories about what it means, but you don't know the truth until they speak.
That's correct. Silence is not consent in the sales world, and it doesn't mean no either. So keep after. That's a great point. Let's talk a little bit about presentations. What would be some of your best practices or good tips again for when you're in a presentation and you're trying to focus on the main points? What do you try to do in terms of hitting home runs versus hitting doubles, or are you always trying to do either or some of each?
Well, the one thing I really dislike when people get presentations is canned PowerPoints. I'm more of the notion of like, you agree to meet me here. I want to make sure, I know we've already talked about, like I may have done those sort questions before, but you do it all over again. I want to make sure, what is the issue that you're really struggling with here? And so that I make sure that I give a presentation that's crafted towards where you have. I have a big bag, I have a full bag of stuff. I only want to show you what's important to you. And then you ask them again, and you keep asking them, what else, until you get a list of all the things that they're interested in. Then what I commonly do is I just walk through their list, and I say, you said you wanted this. Yeah, we can do that. Let me show you. And maybe I would show something online, or maybe I'd be handing them something. Yeah, we can cover that. We've done this before. And at the same time, I'd be bringing up examples of this with other companies, maybe, kind of a testimonial of sorts. Yeah, we had somebody just down the road from you who was like this, and this is what they wanted. And then you go to the next one, and you show how they could do that. And you go to the next one, you show how you can address it. You go to the next one and show how you address it. So at the end of the meeting, it looks like you can do 8 out of 10 things. You may not be able to do them all. I'm all about being honest. But in their mind, what it is Pat was great. He asked us exactly what we wanted. He didn't waste our time. And you get them saying, does it look like this? Looks like it would work for you, right? And they go, yes. Looks like you're right for you, yes. So it looks like you really want to do this. And then they would say yes. And that's the close.
Leading them down a path of yeses that they've already established for themselves without you doing any pushing. All you've done is ask questions.
Yeah. And in fact, sometimes you can't all the way get through the list. And they're saying, well, how do we get started? How do we get started?
Oh, but wait, I haven't asked question number 7 yet. Wait a minute.
Yeah, this is your list, by the way. I didn't invent this list. I didn't show up with this list. We made this here. They're like, no, we want to get started. And you'll go, great. Who's the decision maker? Who am I going to get? I mean, who's the person I'm going to work with to start getting with this? All I need from you is, sign one of these order forms. We can get started before I get the PO. Yep, that's how it works. Easy peasy.
Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. I guess one of the biggest things that folks in sales have to deal with, doesn't matter if you're trying to get a $50 deal in or a $50 billion deal in, is fear. And so what are some of your techniques to overcome that fear at various stages of the process, and why are you so successful in helping others to overcome their own personal fears?
Yeah, fear is founded in you don't know what to do. Fear is founded in you're not what to say, what not. But if you have an attitude of like, I'm here to help, you ask questions and authentically listen to what they're telling you, that fear is going to disappear. If you are there to serve others, to help other people, you will be successful.
If you're there to serve others, you will be successful. I like that. Awesome. Pat, your system is very, very cool. Your sales podcast, Sales Babble, is awesome. Listen, you've got guys and gals from all kinds of different industries with different concepts and whatnot. How can folks get in touch with you? How can they find out about the podcast?
It's super duper easy. All you got to do is go on to Google and type in Sales Babble, and I pop to the top, and it comes out every Tuesday morning, and I'm on iTunes and Stitcher and any place. But you have to go to my website, www.salesbabble.com. There's a button they can click, Babble Me, and they can ask me a question. I'm more than happy to answer. The Selling with Confidence class is right there on the front page. I'm all about serving people, and I can guarantee you that if anybody calls me, I'm going to start asking them questions right at the get-go.
So I was saying you broke up a little bit. You said you can guarantee if someone calls you, you're going to start asking them questions.
That's absolutely true.
Very, very good. So we appreciate your time today, Pat. Thanks so much. Well, that's going to do it for today's show. I'd like to thank Pat for being with us today. And we know how folks can get in touch with Pat. Sales Babble is his podcast. To get in touch with me, visit therapportadvantage.com. If you're interested in finding out what style you are or to get a personality picture of your entire team, head over to the rapportadvantage.com. Click on the Rapport Store tab, and the blue Rapport Store link will take you to the assessment page. Assessments generally take about 10 to 15 minutes and offer a ton of insights into your specific style. On our next podcast, we'll provide some more insights into the mysteries of human behavior. But for my guest today, Pat Helmers, we appreciate your time, and thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Rapport Advantage Podcast. We'd love to hear from you. Join the conversation on Facebook at the Rapport Advantage and follow us on Twitter at Rapport Podcast.